are on part 7 of how to play the clarinet, and we're going to actually play some notes today on this one, and that's exciting. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit on the fingering chart, what that means and how that works, and then we'll get to playing some notes. Okay, the first thing I want to point out is this page 46 and 47 in your book. That's what's called the fingering chart. And it shows you all of the notes that you're going to need for this entire book. Probably, I believe there's more here than what you're going to need, but it also has this little diagram that's highlighted in yellow that kind of explains the fingering chart. So you'll see here that this is the front of the clarinet, and this is the back of the clarinet. This is the side you see when you're holding it, and this is the other side from you, okay? And so it always represents it on the fingering chart as if it's like this, okay? And so sometimes that gets a little confusing, especially when you're using these pinky keys down here, which I'll show you in a minute. So this top button is referring to your left finger up here, which we talked about when we were talking about how to hold it, talking about it being this one here, okay? And then the next one and the next one, right? So this one, and this one. And then there'll be a little line, which is kind of saying that, okay, now we're on the lower section. So your right finger, right middle finger, right ring finger, okay? So that's down here, these ones, okay, with your right hand coming around this way, okay? And so that's kind of how that works. And then next to it is this little one here with a little teardrop one above it. And that's referring to the back of your clarinet where your thumb goes right here, holding onto it like this, okay? So that's kind of what it refers to. So here we are on page 6, and on the top it has those first 3 notes, your E, your F, and your G, and then it has a fingering chart next to each one. So you got to remember several things on each note. You got to remember the name of the note, you got to remember where it's at on the staff, and you got to remember what buttons to push to play it, okay? So this E, with your first finger on your left hand and your thumb on that back hole. Okay, the F is on the first space, F, and it's just your thumb. And then the G, you're not pushing anything, and we'll talk about how you're going to do that just shortly. So the dark ones are the ones you push down. The white ones are the ones you don't push down. Oh, right here. Sorry. Sorry. No, it's okay.
Love you. Lunch is on the table for you.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Good luck. So, the first note there, like we said, was the E. So it's your first finger with your left hand and your thumb on the back. Remember to keep that thumb going up so that later when we learn some register notes, you can do that. So the biggest key is that you have to completely cover the hole that your finger's covering. If you don't cover the hole, it's going to squeak, or it's not going to play, or it'll play a wrong note. It has to be completely covered. So one way is after pushing down on it for a minute, you can look at the pad of your finger, and if you can see the complete hole, that means you've been covering it correctly. If you see like half of it or 3/4 of it, that means you're probably not covering it all the way, okay? So you cover that hole, that first note, the E, make sure you do all the things right with your embouchure, and then just blow air through the reed and into the mouthpiece. Don't worry about the sound, just blow steady air. Okay, so that's your E. And then your F, all you do is you take off that first finger, but remember not to have them fly away. You just keep them right over there. Just cover the thumb. And that's your F. And then the G, you're gonna keep your thumb on that thumb rest. And you're going to keep your hands just lightly covering over those holes, but just don't push them down. Don't cover them. But you're not going to just go like this. You're not going to go like this, you know. You're just going to keep your hands right where they go. And that's the G. Okay? So those are your first three notes. Talk about that on your exercise number 1. We work on just the E. And the first note there you'll see is highlighted in yellow. It says E, and then also in blue highlights on the next two things. It talks about your whole rest and your whole note. Whole rest equals 4 counts of silence. Okay, 4 counts of silence. So it's really important that you count. It doesn't mean that you just take a break. You count those 4 rests. And then the whole note is 4 counts of sound of the correct note, right? So 4 counts or 4 beats means that you have a steady rhythm, right? Maybe this is our beats. And if I were going to play a whole note, I would play ta, meaning that you start on the beginning of the first note, 1, and you play through 2, 3, 4, and you stop all the way to the end of beat 4 or the beginning of the next beat. Okay, so that's how you play that. So if I were to play a whole note on number 1, the first E, we're just going to play the first one. Remember, it's your first finger and your thumb, and you can play it with me. 1, 2, here we go. So that's 4 counts on that whole note. Okay. And that's how you play that. And you got to keep that beat in your head. In band, I'll be directing through all 4 of those beats for you, so you know where we're at. If you're in your own practice, you got to count in your head as you play through that note. The other thing that I would highly recommend is that you look at the note as you're playing it. So we're going to do exercise number 1. I'm going to move the stand over here so that I can see my notes, and I'm going to watch them as I play. So you see the first measure has the E. Second measure is that first blue section that has the whole rest. And then the next note doesn't have the E written over it, but it's still an E because it's on the same line. It's on that first line, which means it's an E. And we're going to play those. Exercise number 1. You can play along with me. Here we go. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the end. We have a double bar there, which means that's the end of that section. So you got to count through your note as you're playing it. Think in your head, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you got to count through your rest. Okay. Exercise number 2 has the F, which means you're just using just the thumb on the back. Okay, let's try that one. Now this one, if you look at it before we play it, it only has 3 whole notes and 3 whole rests. So you got to watch and you got to follow along. As I'm playing, that's where I'm looking. I'm looking at the note as I play it. Okay, 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. That's the end. There's another double bar there. Number 3 uses both of the notes. Okay. So I should mention that as you're playing, you don't push the note down as you play it. Okay. You get your fingers in the right spot, hold it there, set it in the right place, breathe, and play with the fingers already in the right spot. Okay. So on number 3, you're going to start with your E, and you're going to have your fingers in the right spot when you play. You're going to play. And when we get to the rest, you're going to get ready for the next note, which is an F, just your thumb, before you play it. Okay? And then when you get there, then we'll play it. Okay? Let's try that. Number 3. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, get your fingers ready and go. 1, 2, fingers ready for the E and go. 1, 2, and that's the end. Okay, so you're able to play 2 different notes on 2 different spots of the staff. Remember that they're different because the first note, the E, is on the first line. The F is on the first space. So the E is always, whenever you have a note on that first line, it's going to be an E for now. Whenever you have a note on the first space, it's going to be an F. Okay, and so you just got to memorize that. So just remember that it's only 2 notes right now, and the next exercise we're going to add a third. But the whole page 6 and 7 is only those 3 notes. So just memorize them. Don't write them over the top of the notes. If you can memorize what F means, then you should memorize that the note on the first space is an F. Just remember that, okay? And if you forget on this first 2 pages, it's right there on the top of page 6. So you can just look right there and remind yourself, okay? So don't write it in. Okay, we're going to go to the number 4. It's the G. And number 4 is called Watch Those Rests, because in measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, measure 6, and measure 7, there are 2 rests back to back. So you got to be following along, or else you're going to play in the wrong spot. They do that on purpose to try and trick you up, to make sure you're looking at the notes. Okay, let's try it. Number 4. It's the G. No buttons. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3. Here's the second rest. 1, 2, and then the last note, go. Okay? And then number 5 has all 3 notes. Okay, so before you play each note, get your finger set for the next note. Okay, let's try it. Number 5 starts with an E. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, go to the F, go. Last note, the G, and ready, go. 1, 2, back to the F, and play. And last note, the E, and ready, go. So you went all the way up and all the way back down. Okay, so we've been playing a lot of notes. As we start each of those notes, you should be making this kind of motion with your tongue, this kind of sound. So what I want you to practice right now is go like this. Make that sound. So however you make that sound, just make that sound. And you're going to notice kind of what your tongue's doing to make that sound, and then make it a little bit longer. Okay? Notice that you're not stopping the air. The air is just flowing. Just like a garden hose during the summer, you turn it on full blast, and you just put your hand through it. Psh, 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 right? Same thing with the air in your tongue. Your tongue's your hand, right? And the air is the water. Okay? Make it even longer. Okay, now how that translates to your clarinet when you play, it's the same thing. Let's do with the E, this note. And when you start it, you go just like we did. Now your tongue is actually going to be touching the tip of the reed when we start. Okay? So you get it set up, your tongue touches the tip of the reed, and you play. Now if we want to do like we did, you can do that. Okay, your tongue touches the tip of the reed each time you go. You do just the same thing with your mouth, that you make that sound. And then try it longer. And try it longer. And as we get to number 6 in the book, you'll notice that that's pretty much what we do. We start with a G. That I played 2 different notes, but I didn't stop my airflow. I didn't stop and then play another note. I just blew air and then I interrupted it with that sound again. So I went, and I didn't stop the airflow. Okay, the air keeps going. So let's try number 6. You can have the G, the E, the G, then the F, then the E. Okay? 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, so get set and go. 1, 2, the E and play. So it's really important that you do that correctly at the beginning of each of those notes, that sound. So you do that, so each time it's, okay, without stopping your airflow. Now if you're finding that you're running out of air, there's an easy solution for that. And that solution is take more air when you start. Okay? So if you're running out of air, make sure when you start you go and you have enough air to play. Okay? So take more air when you start. So work through that page. You might need to go back to the beginning, exercises 1 through 5, and practice that sound at the beginning of each note. And then at the end of the note, just stop blowing air. Okay? So as you play, don't try and stop it with your tongue. Just stop blowing air. You just stop blowing air. Okay? Don't stop it with your throat or your tongue or anything like that. Okay? And that's kind of how you play that note. Our next video will cover a few new things, and we'll finish it up for the beginning of playing the clarinet. So thanks for joining me for these videos, and we'll see you on the next one.